and welcome to the Lifeburst Podcast's review of Stand Up Diva. Today we're gonna review the LRigs, and then we're gonna review the assist LRigs in a later video, and then we're gonna do each color individually. If you guys want, you can subscribe and watch them as they come out, or you can check the playlist and watch the whole thing. But we'll start with talking about what our ratings are going to be, and we're going to use the staple. If it's a staple, it means it's very playable. It's like you're going to use it for a long time to come. Then we're going to use playable, which is going to mean that it's going to be, this is playable for now. It will probably be less playable in the future, but for now it's a very good card. Then we're going to go ahead and say that something is viable, which means that there are probably better options out there. I got to remember that this is an internal format, and the fact that we keep adding to it and nothing yet rotates out, and because of that, things just continue to be sort of out power crept as time goes on, or that you could use it in some viable decks, but you might need to work around it to make it good. And then we're gonna say the last one is unplayable. This is just a card you'll never end up using. If you don't have it in your collection, you probably would be fine without it. So let's talk about these LRigs. Ray on the Wings of Supremacy. To read it real quick, it's a level 3. It's got a grow cost of 2. Its team is no limit. Its auto team ability is at the beginning of your attack phase. If you've drawn more than 2 cards by effects this turn, you can pay blue and colorless. If you do, put target level 2 or less Signy on the bottom of its owner's deck. Its enter ability is the usual no limit, draw a card and enter charge, although that's not team, I shouldn't say that. And its action ability is once a game you can down 2 up to level 2 LRigs. You can discard your hand, and the opponent has to discard cards equal to the number of blue cards that you've discarded this way. So, let's start with team breaking or not team breaking for this. So do you want it on Dream Team or not? And the answer is probably no. You probably don't want to Dream Team with this because its draw to this card is going to be its team auto ability. You theoretically, if you wanted to team break with it, you could use more of a blue-esque team to focus on that discard effect and then really focus on discard effects with your Signy. Again, I wouldn't suggest it. I think that auto ability is very, very good, but that means you have to play it on a team no limit. So let's view the rest of this with it being on a team no limit. The answer to that is, if it's a team no limit, it's very, very good. Team no limit has some pretty good support LRigs, in the fact that Akino, Rock and Akino Bye Bye are very good support line. They are aggressive though, and then you have Hirana, which also is slightly aggressive. So you could build this deck to being more aggressive. You could build it to be more tempo, which I think is the right play to do because you're naturally inclined to a little bit more aggressive plays. Or you could build it to actually be somewhat controlling. And here's why you might want to consider building it somewhat controlling. Blue LRigs have had problems where they are able to dirtle very well. They're able to enter star very well, they're able to make the opponent discard cards very well, they're able to draw cards very well, they're really good at freezing, for example. And all of these things do nothing to help you win the game. They extend the game for sure, which could help you win the game in theory, but without a clock in Wixoss, you're just not going to win the game. And Ray kind of gives you an out on that. She, as a center, does give you a clock on her own. She basically says every turn, you could pay, if you enable her, every turn, you can pay blue and you can pay colorless. And if you do, you can put a target level 2 on the bottom. Target level 2 or target level 1. Because of the way that limits work, as of right now, we can't go to level 4 with our LRigs. The limit ends up being 8 at most, which means no matter what, there's always going to be a target for that ability on the field, which means that you can always get in 1 life damage, basically, with this. Generally speaking, you get an open lane. The enter draw card and enter charge 1 is always a fantastic ability. It's a workhorse, it's unexciting, but it does a job, and it enables her auto ability so that you only need to draw a single card. And then her once a game ability is a little complex, so let's talk about that in just a second once we finish talking about the auto ability. The auto ability, you're going to need to draw cards for. This means that you are going to lean into your blue or red draw card, discard of card effects in order to enable that pretty cheaply. You could also occasionally have random white draws, but white draw usually only does, it replaces itself. And you gotta make sure that you're looking for something that says draw a card, not put that card into your hand, because that's not draw technically. So you're going to probably shy away from that white. But white does bring in some resource denial, and by bottoming things onto the deck, you actually can resource deny with Ray as well pretty successfully. One of the problems that a lot of blue LRigs have is they do things like freeze and enter starve, but then they have to vanish things to open up lanes, and it ends up not working out for them that way. This gets around that by bottoming it at the bottom of the deck. The discard effect is interesting because you're going to lose a lot of your own resources by using that effect, and the only times that you're really going to think, oh, I should lose my resources like this, is when I'm going for the final attack of the game. When you go for the final attack of the game, yes, you are allowed to ditch all your resources and just secure that win by making sure if they had a hand, they don't have a hand, oh, there goes their guards. Great. Another option that you can do is if you know that you have some way to do a powerful draw in the deck and it's somewhat close, or you have a decent density of them in your deck, you could do this to screw your opponents. If you're playing in a deck that's kind of more controlling than you, and you know that the best way to deal with them is to make sure they don't have any hand pretty early on, you can use this effect immediately, and then hope that you will draw cards. It's risky that you can draw the cards that will then allow you to refill your hand. But that is an option as well. Things like Song of Wixoss, for example, might be able to do that. And Song of Wixoss also makes you discard your cards at the end of a turn. And because of that, you could just say, well, if I'm discarding it anyways, I'm going to go ahead and use this effect, and then use it to your advantage. So that's another way that you could use Ray, Wings of Supremacy. Where it lands on the rating chart will be somewhere between staple and playable. I think inevitably it will get pretty, it'll have a short shelf life, just because DXM will sort of start reigning supreme, but it's going to create a rock, paper, scissors metagame in the meantime for probably set 3 and a lot of set 4, so let's go ahead and lean on staple for now. It's a good card to have, I think, and it's a good card to build around. If you wanted to something more aggressive, but also a little bit more tricksy or a little bit more tempo-based, this might be the switch that you're looking for to take no limit and switch it up to Ray. Moving right along to VJWolf, we have a level 3 green LRig with grow cost of 2. The team is Card Jockey. Its action ability is that you can down it and enter charge 2. Its enter ability is that this LRig gains Signy on your field to get plus 5,000 power till end of turn. And the once again action ability is that you can down up to level 2 LRig, and then you can up this till the turn. So basically this means that it'll allow you to enter charge 6 at some point. And if you have Endless Punchline, you can still attack through. To start with the question of, would I team break with this? Would I go onto a dream team? And the answer is no. I think you need every inch of this card to make it even slightly playable. That if you do not play it on a team, you are going to, in essence, lose that action ability, and then your once a game ability becomes less good because you don't really have a way to down it with yourself. So I wouldn't play this on a dream team. I would play this on Card Jockey. However, I would probably just lean a lot harder into red than white. You're going to want an Endless Punchline probably with it still, but you can accomplish an Endless Punchline with just your MC Lion, Good Dig, your MC Lion Dig, Good Dig, and Haniel. So I would probably just use those to enable a punchline. The thing is, what do you do with Enter Charge 6, right? It is, you're going to use some green Signy that want a power boost, and there's a fair amount of green and red Signy, that's why I say you should lean to the red Signy as well, that like power boosts. So I would play those cards, but what do you do with Enter Charge 6? And the answer is probably not your LRigs, even though you can pay for your assist LRigs with the action, and then grow them to level 2, and then up them up this with your level 2 that you just put down. That is one way to do it. Another way to do it is that green and red often have 2 enter costs in order to do late game removal, late game lane clearing, and this would allow you to clear a field, because if you do 6 divided by 2, it's 2, or it's 3, so you can clear a field out there. Other than that, your best option is probably an expensive piece. Now, there's no piece right now that costs like 6 or 8 right now that you can do in Card Jockey. So your best bet is something like Silent Assassin or even Future Code, which requires your team to be powered up in order to have Lancer. And this will enable both sides of Future Code. So you could try it with something like that, or try it with something like Silent Assassin. Both of these pieces cost 4, so they're somewhat expensive. But there has never been a enter charge 6 in Wixoss, so this is the first time you're really going to see something like that. So you could theoretically play some kind of big enter deck where you need a bunch of enter ramp. But overall, I'm going to say this is viable. It's got uses, but I think you'd be better off playing Lion or Love It in this type of deck. I'm going to go to Nova Skyfeather. It's a white level 3 LRig. Its grow cost is 2 white. You can use it on the team Uchu no Hajimari. Its team enter ability is return target Signy on your opponent's field to their hand. Your auto ability is whenever this LRig attacks, if there's 5 or more cards underneath it, you can put up to 1 guard from your trash to the top of your deck. If there's 7 or more cards underneath it, you get to draw a card. And it looks like you have to draw a card. The action is once a game, you can put all the cards underneath all the other LRigs on your field under this one. Let's start with the team breaking question. Do you want to do a dream team with this? And the answer is you could. Losing the ability to return target Signy from your opponent's field to their hand is kind of annoying because it's a good ability. And I think one that's probably necessary in Nova because it's a very much more of a wall-ish deck. I have played quite a bit of all of these so far and just play testing to just get a general feeling of it. But theoretically, that's not the reason why you don't want to team break with Uchu no Hajimari. The reason why you don't want to team break is all of Uchu no Hajimari's cards lend themselves to Nova. Hapine Destruction, Fenrir, and Random Drain are all very important pieces in this deck that restrict your opponent's resources, plus the fact that you're now bouncing something back to their hand is also resource restricting. And the fact that you can now, unlike Bang and Tamago, where you wanted to wall up pretty efficiently, freeze and enter starve, Nova can do it much better, because Nova turns off the clock that normally exists by LRigs. The clock that normally exists by LRigs is the fact that they're basically unblockable unless you have a guard. And you really only guard once per average across all your games, if you really think about it. So, the fact that it turns the natural clock of Wixoss off means that you are able to extend this game, unlike other LRigs, to turn 7, 8 pretty easily, and you are likely to win if the game starts to go long. So Nova presents itself as a true control deck that has not existed in Wixoss prior. There has been controlling-esque mid-range decks like Madoka, but this is the first real true control deck that you're going to be able to play. Ironically, its weakness would be something like Ray, which the longer the game goes on, the more it can end up doing its once a turn ability, its action or its attack ability, where it opens up a lane and it doesn't matter how big that Signy is because it's going to just put it to the bottom regardless. So Nova ends up being pretty bad against Ray, but good against, for example, other aggressive strategies like Hirana No Limit or Card Jockey. So I'm going to say that Nova is probably a staple. You're going to see it at least until set 5 in the Japanese meta, so it's a good card to invest in. Senga, on the other hand, is unplayable. I'm just going to go ahead and spoil that from the front. I wish it was even viable, but I couldn't even bring myself to bring it that rating. Senga Vogue 3 is a level 3 green center LRig with the grow cost of 2. Its team is Diagram. Its team auto ability is at the beginning of your attack phase. If you have a blue, green, and black Signy on your field, enter charge 1, then add up to 1 target Signy from your enter zone to your hand. Its enter ability is enter charge 2, and its action ability is once a game you can take one diagram LRig from your field, a level 1 diagram LRig from your field, and put it to your LRig deck so you can replay it. The issue is that 90% of the time in these other diagram decks, you took Sanga Aerial, so you don't have a really great option for your once a game ability. Yes, you can take Music a Power Bomb, and that's probably the correct thing to do with it in order to basically just still do the lane opening with the removal, although it's worse removal than it is with just giving something Lancer. You have the ability to Enter Charge or very selectively draw 1. Both of those can be found in other LRigs for less of a continuous, reliable issue of trying to have green, black, and blue Signy on it. I would not team break with this because it so heavily needs the diagram colors as well as the diagram abilities for it to be any good. So with that in mind, there's very few options that you can do with this. Diagram does like multicolor Signy just because they have a bigger power on them anyways. And Diagram happens to be generally more color greedy than most decks are. So it's okay, and you should be able to enable that auto ability. And you gotta remember, if you're using the multicolor Signy, you don't need to fill out your lanes with just a blue Signy, a green Signy, a black Signy. This can be multicolored and it counts twice. Your best bet is to, when you build the deck, to start looking at the flow of the cards that you're going to probably put out Signy-wise, because you'll want to know that, alright, I am going to have a 3, a 2, and a 1 out. What colors do those need to be for me to enable this ability? If you are going to take my advice, I would probably just use a lot of the multicolors at level 1. So that way, because that's the most flexible, it means that you can put them down at any point in time, and your 2s and 3s matter a little less in terms of color, but you should color balance with them regardless. I would probably use Madoka Float as my level 1 blue LRig that I can toss back to my hand, and then Music of Power Bomb as the other one, so that way I can have a form of removal twice if I need to with this ability. And that'll give you your flexibility a little bit that Diagram's known for. So I'm going to say this one's unplayable. I don't think you should use this. I think you should use any of the other Diagram pieces as well, but you could, and that's how you could theoretically put it together. And that's our review on the Stand-Up Diva LRigs. If you want to see more, definitely subscribe so you can see more set reviews as they come out. And if you want to see more of this set review, and this is your first time to the channel, go ahead and make sure to check out the playlist. That'll get you all of them. All right, see you in the next one.